Hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you today to our webinar, Sage Document Management, Go Paperless with DocLink. This is Lori Ramsey with Socius, and we appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to join us. We know that many of you might struggle with moving paper documents around your organization, finding documents when you need them, sending them to people in remote offices, and also may lose visibility when the document leaves your possession. We're going to address some of these concerns today. There's a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please either raise your hand so that we can unmute your line or submit them through the GoToWebinar question box and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. We will be answering questions throughout. We do have a full presentation today, so we want to make sure we make the best use of your time. So we prefer that you type them in the chat, and then we'll make sure to follow up with everyone and answer all the questions at the end. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. From Altec, we have industry expert Laura Lashin. Laura joined Altec in May of 2014 as sales director. She has over 15 years of experience in workflow and content management, working with corporate America and government agencies as a liaison between global vendors, distribution channels, and clients. At Altec, she supports resellers and their customers in the Mid-Atlantic region. At this point, Laura, I'd like to transition the presentation over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Lori, and thank you folks for the opportunity to present to you our Sage Integrated Document Management Solution. Today, we're going to talk about how can we help you folks increase efficiencies by streamlining your business process, by having visibility to your documents, and a better way to manage and access your information. And of course, doing this the paperless way. So many of us, we live in a world today where we have instant access to information. Think about it. You can travel to anywhere around the world. The minute you get off the plane, you can pull up your cell phone and ask to find your hotel or what's the nearest restaurant or the nearest gas station. Okay. We expect the information to be accessible instantly. So why can't we do the same in a business? The challenge is we have information all over the place, and so it's hard to find anything within our office. Well, we're going to help resolve those issues. Okay. So some of the business problem we face today is the silos of business documents. They're living all over the place. You may have some in your file cabinets. Some of you may have multiple locations or offices, and of course, not having to able to have access to those information. Some of you may have different applications where, HR files are living in the HR applications. Marketing is, living in another database. Accounting documents are living in another location. And now, of course, the challenge is you having to find those documents, having to go to all those different silos of business to find the information. So the idea is, let's centralize the storage of your documents, your vital information, all in one place, yet everyone can have access to the information. And in addition to that, of course, is the inefficient business process. The routing of the documents, getting it through the approval, visibility to those documents. You have people now telecommute. People are at conferences, traveling all the time. How can we increase their efficiency and for them to be able to access the information at any time? Or if you're waiting for approvals from them, you don't have to wait until they get back to the office. Okay. And of course, security and compliance. And security we're talking about is able to secure certain staff having access to certain documents and information on the document. The file cabinets that you have in your office. How can we prevent someone from going to that office and looking at that vital record or that documents? You can't, okay? And also compliances. Depending on the industry that you're in, there are different compliances that your organization have to meet. For certain documents, you have to meet with HIPAA requirements and Sarbanes-Oxley and other government-regulated policies. Compliance also have to do with the management of your document for disaster preparedness. Do you have a way to prepare for disaster preparedness where if you go paperless, the documents are all living electronically on the server, backup is being done, so we can restore that information. Let's talk about operation efficiency. Like I said, is people are all over the place waiting for them to get approval, customer calling in, wondering what's happening with their orders, and here you are not able to track and know exactly where that order is in the process and able to reply in a timely manner, or knowing where the invoice is in the approval process and if you're going to meet the due date timeline or not, or able to take advantage of early pay discount, for example. And then, of course, the ability to maximize profit. Some of you are paying for offsite storage. You are making copies and copies and copies of the same documents living in multiple desks. When you need to get documents to a customer, you're printing, you're copying, you're scanning, you're mailing. Let's reduce all that cost. Okay. So what is DocLink? Imagine DocLink as your electronic file cabinet, where all your information can be stored at one central place, a location where everyone could be going to access the information. So with DocLink, you're going to be able to capture and store all your documents into the system. I'm talking about your Word file, I'm talking about your Excel file, I'm talking about your PowerPoint, your video, your PDF, your TIFF documents, your AutoCAD drive. You can scan documents in. You can import them in if you have electronically. Okay. We have numerous ways of how we can capture your information. And then once the document is captured in the system, let's talk about searching. The benefit to going paperless and using document management is that now you can access and search for your information instantly from anywhere around the world. And the benefit to our integration with Sage is that now you have two places where you can find your information. And that is within Sage, but then you will have a lot of staff that don't have access to Sage. Well, those staff then can search and have access to the document through DocLink. So you're now going to have two places where you can find your information. Okay. You can use DocLink to store and search your information. Some of you are moving and you don't want to take all those file cabinets with you. Some of you are paying for offsite storage, and now it's like you realize, why are you paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every year? Let's minimize that cost. So we have customers where they just want to store and search their document, and that's it. You can do that. But then we have many customers where they have live working documents, like the AP invoices, that need to be routed around, action to take upon, approval required before payment can get processed. So live working document that needs to be that needs to be tracked. Okay, so we can meet that need. And then of course we also have ways where we can automate the output of your document, automatically distribute document in a batch mode. Okay, and we're going to talk about that also. But also another benefit to DocLink is that you have many documents that you generate in-house. Okay, requisition request form, time off request, vacation request, okay, expense report. A lot of forms, a lot of documents you generate in-house. Well, let's do it the paperless way, the electronic way. DocLink can help with that. Okay. All right. But before we move forward to talking about showing you this system, let's talk about, some of the return on the investment. This is a live evidence of a customer of ours where they are paying Iron Mountain to store their files, to manage their files, to find their files. Okay. All that cost can be eliminated. This particular client here has saved $85,000 annually after the implementation or moving forward with document management. Okay. We have another client where for the AR side of the house, where they mail out the AR invoices. Well, they don't have to do that anymore because now we have a way that we can automatically distribute out their AR invoices electronically. Okay, so it's $11,000 alone just for postage. They're not including the cost for the staff time of stuffing the envelope, the printing cost, the toner cost, and so on. This is just for postage only. So there we go. So far, we have about $100,000 of savings. Okay. So let's talk about the system and how it can be used in your organization. And here are some ideas. The most trouble spot is your AP invoicing side of the house. Most of our customers will start the system in that particular business unit, because you have, getting your invoice paid in a timely manner, able to have access to the document instantly, okay, reducing manual data entry, and of course is eliminating the need to file paper. There are a lot more reasons, but these are some of the challenges that we hear from our clients every day. I can walk into a customer, and I'll bet you on the phone right now, you're saying to yourself, I can't get my invoice approved on time because Joe is always traveling, and we can't process the payment until Joe actually sees the invoice and then process the payment. But he's not in the office. So let's resolve that issue. Okay. Many vendors now are emailing invoices. So we can monitor your email server. We could automatically bring in those invoices. We monitor the email server for a specific email address. So when any invoices are emailed to you, we can automatically grab it and store it into the DocLink system. And then now workflow is going to notify the approvers or the AP staff, depending on your process. Okay. So invoices are being captured, automatically can be stored into the system, and then now workflow will notify the approvers. But you're sitting there thinking, well, that's great, but Joe is at a conference across the country. That's all right. Joe just needs access to his email, because we can send out an email notification per each invoice. Attached to that email, we can actually include the invoice with it. So then Joe can just open up the invoice, look at it, and directly from his email, he can just click approve or reject. When he click approve or reject, it's going to log in our audit log of when Joe approved it or when he denied it. Full audit trail. And then now, of course, the workflow will notify the next person, and so on and so on. Okay. So that is how your approvers can be notified that there are documents waiting for their approval or action to take upon. And yes, we are compatible with Android and iOS devices. Okay. All right. DocLink is fully integrated with your Sage ERP software. Being that we are fully integrated, there are many accounting features that's going to be very beneficial for you in the AP side of the house. A typical process that we hear all the time is invoice comes in. The AP staff then has to walk that invoice or route it to the approving manager. The approving manager then looks at it and then write down the G code or GL code or account code on that invoice. And then eventually it makes its way back to the AP staff. AP staff try to read the handwriting and then input that data into Sage. I don't know about you, but that's double work right there. That's a waste of time of your staff. we can help with that. So when an invoice comes in, our workflow will notify the approving manager. The approving manager then would go into DocLink, look at the invoice, but instead of handwriting the invoice, the GL code on the invoice, look at to the right here. We are linked directly to Sage, to the GL master file in real time. So the approving manager can just select the GL code from the drop-down list. And yes, we can secure it down so they can only have access to certain codes instead of all the codes. And if there are certain vendors that you deal all the time using the same code, we can set that up as a default, just like the way you have it in Sage. And because we're fully linked to Sage, you can start typing in the vendor name. The system's going to go to Sage, and it's going to look and pull over all the data associated with that vendors, like their payment terms and so on and so on. Okay. Once you're done doing the coding, so this here is giving you the ability to do coding in DocLink, and you do not need to have access to Sage. Once you're done, the system is going to create a cover sheet with all the coding information, who did it and when. And if all looks good, then what happened is that the coding information gets pushed over to Sage. So the coding information gets pushed over from DocLink over to Sage. So the AP staff don't have to do that same coding. Now we're human, we make errors. So if AP staff realize that it's the wrong code or the wrong dollar amount, they can go ahead and update it, make the corrections. And in the back end of the database, the system will update each other. Okay. And of course, is in Sage, they will have access to the documents. So here's the example of the ability to do coding within DocLink. And then the system passes the coding over to Sage. Now, however, you are going to run into some approving managers where they tell you, you know what, I don't want to deal with any coding. I just like writing the code on the invoice like I normally do. No problem. Let them do that. But instead of doing it, let's do it the paperless way, where with the system we have annotation tools where they can, type in the sticky note of the code, or we have a note box area that they can actually type in the notes and any special notes or the GL code that they want to use for those transactions. Okay, and then of course, then it makes its way to AP. AP then in Sage, they will have access to the invoices and all the associated documents. We talk about packing slip, delivery ticket, purchase order, all the documents associated with the invoice. They can view it, they can do their matching, they can do the coding like they normally do. But once they're done doing the coding, the system is going to push all that coding from Sage over to DocLink, tying the information to all the documents associated with that invoice. Okay, so here's an example of the ability to do coding in two places and also viewing documents in both Sage and in DocLink, and data being passed back and forth between the two applications. So now, oh, by the way, here's the result after it pushes the data, the coding information over to DocLink. So now once the invoice has been approved, you now process the payment in Sage. Okay. Well, when you process the payment in Sage, we have the capability to actually capture documents and store into DocLink electronically through a feature called Enterprise Report Management. Okay. When you process the payment in Sage, we can capture an image of it and store that into the DocLink system, tying this payment to all the invoices associated. Because as you can see here, this payment paid for multiple invoices. And when we pull a copy of this payment over, we also pull over all the data about that payment. So that way later on when Mr. Vendor calls up, hey Lori, I sent you an invoice a month ago and I haven't received the payment yet. Lori, who do not have access to Sage, don't have to call AP, don't have to wait for accounting staff to be available. Lori can just go into DocLink, type in an invoice number, and if the payment's been processed, she will see a copy of it. And from here, Lori can print it out, email it out, or save it externally. And oh yes, I forgot to tell you that when we capture an image of this payment, we can actually include or stamp the word void or non-negotiable on the payment for you. Okay? So this feature here, just an example. Now we can capture any kind of documents that you generate in Sage or from any applications. So if you create purchase order in Sage, we can capture an image of that purchase order stored into the system. If you create sales orders or AR invoices and you want to store that into your file cabinet, we can do so electronically, automatically. Okay. So that is a little bit about the processing of your AP invoices. So now payment's been made, okay, and now the question is now how can you search for those information? Well, I already mentioned that you can have access and search for all those documents in Sage. But you will have some staff who do not have access to Sage. Well, with those staff, they can search through DocLink. So here's an example of the user interface screen. Okay, now please note the one-time investment of the system. You can use it to store documents within all your companies. Some of you may have just one company. Some of you may have 50 companies. It doesn't matter. You can use the same system to store documents for all your companies. When you store documents into our system, you need to identify what type of document is it. Is it an invoice? Is it a check? Is it a contract? Is it an HR file? What is it? Document types here for two primary reasons. One, security. When John logs in, the system is going to check which company does John have access to, and within that company, what types of document does he have access to, and what can he do within the system? Can he view it? Can he print it? Can he email it? Can he delete it? In this database here, I actually have HR files also. But you don't see it here. It's because John hasn't been given permission to have access to HR files. Okay? So our security is very tight and very granular. So secondly, document types here for searching. You can go in and tell the system, hey, DocLink, find for me all the documents within all my companies anytime a vendor name Altec was mentioned, and it will find it. Or you can filter it down. DocLink, find for me only the AP invoice within Fabricon company for a particular invoice number. We're filtering it down. Okay. Now you can do wildcard search. Take example the name Anderson. Some people spell with S-O-N, some people will spell with S-E-N, and when you're searching, especially when there's an audit, you want to make sure you find everything. Okay. You can also do relational search, in other words, date range search. Find for me the invoices that we paid for yesterday, or last week, or last month. Okay. You can use the system for tracking of expiration of when a contract expires, or when the renewal is for your support agreements. You can also use this for retention scheduling, tracking the life cycle of your documents. Okay. So here, I'm just going to search for an invoice based on a particular invoice number. Here I found one invoice, and here, based on that invoice number, here's all the information about the invoice. But we can actually go deeper than that. Maybe Diane wants to say, show me all the documents associated with this vendor here, Printigra. Or you know what? Better yet, show me all the documents associated with this purchase order number. You just click on it, and with a simple click, the system is going to bring up all the documents associated with that purchase order number. And now using the Shift key, you just select them all, and with a simple click, the system is going to bring up all the documents on the same screen on a tile format or the format. So you don't have to have multiple screens open. You don't have to click open and close multiple times. And by the way, AP staff loves this feature because now they can do the matching because they have the purchase order in front of them, they have the packing slip, they have the contract, here's the invoice, and they can do the manual matching, comparing the invoice to the purchase orders and so on. But we also have a way to do automated matching also. We can talk about that with you on a separate call. Okay. So the idea is for the AP department, when the purchasing order department creates a purchase order in Sage, we capture and image it, we store into the DocLink system at the time when they create it. Now when the goods are being received and your receiving department, and they do their receiving, then the department stores the packing slip and the delivery ticket into the system as they receive it. So now when the AP department receives the invoice, they store that into the system. It gets linked to all the associated documents so they can do their matching. And then now when payment processed, we capture an image of the payment and store that into the system. So now you have the complete history from beginning to end. And all those documents are all living in the same place, in the same database. The purchase order is not living in the purchasing silo. The shipping receiving department don't have the packing slip in their file cabinets. Okay. An AP department having now the invoice. It's all visible. What about your, some of you have corporate company credit card. How can we help you in this area? As you know, many banks now offers a statement in CSV format. So what we do is we create a template of your bank statement. So when AP, when you receive the statement, okay, all you have to do is just import it in, that CSV file. That CSV file is just an electronic file with all the transactions. Notice here, this statement have charges for Robert Cosby, for also, let's see here, for Marie and Benjamin and so on. But with one simple click, when you click Create, the system is going to create a separate statement per each cardholder with all their itemized charges. And then now you use workflow, you route it to the cardholder. The cardholder then can upload their receipt per each transaction. And yes, you can also do then now your GL coding for the transaction. And yes, we can push all these transactions over to Sage. So you don't have to do the same data entry because all the data are here. A task that's been taking your AP staff hours or even days, depending on how many cardholders or how large your statement is, down to literally now seconds. Okay? Automation and efficiency. What about your AR side of the house? Some of you process monthly AR invoices. And when you send those AR invoices out to your client, some of your clients want to see a copy of that contract for that invoice, or they want to see the purchase order with that invoice, or they want to see the proof of signed delivery ticket with that invoice. So now when you create the invoice, the staff have to go to the file cabinet, find those documents, scan it in, or make copies of it, and then attach it to the invoice, and then now open up their email and drag and drop those documents in and email it out. A lot of manual process, very time consuming. Well, now all you have to do is you create the invoice in Sage, and what happens is our system will go and automatically look for those associated documents and attach it to your invoice automatically, and will even email it out automatically. We will read the email address on the invoice or in Sage or in some kind of database and email it out automatically. Or if you use electronic faxing, we can automatically email it out or send it to a default printer. So at the end of the day, all you have to do is create the invoice and we will do the rest. So here's an example of an invoice that's being emailed out, an invoice that was generated in Sage. But then we went and we pulled the signed delivery ticket and attached it to the invoice and then email it out automatically. Again, automation and time savings. Okay. So what about your accounting managers? What are their concerns? Obviously, visibility to the documents and making better use of staff time. I mentioned we have a full audit trail. So you know exactly every transaction to your document, who logged in, what day, what time, what action was performed to which document. You can secure your information down so the users, what can they do within the system? I'll bet you can't do that today. And of course, visibility to document, knowing where they're at in the process. Many of you have a need to find out, I want to know weekly what invoice is still pending for approval, which invoice is still pending to process payment, which one we were already paid, or I want to know any orders that are still pending, okay? Or I want to know how many invoices are sitting on Joe's desk waiting for his action, how many are sitting on Jack's desk waiting for his approval. So here we have some invoices that is at the payable for review. We have an invoice that hasn't been approved yet. We have some invoice that's just been received in the house. No one have touched it yet. Okay. So visibility to your documents, information, and knowing where it's at. What about your CFO? Of course, their job is to cut down on costs. So yes, get rid of all those offsite storage. Why are you paying for office space for those file cabinets when it could be used for staff space? Okay. And what about audits? Are you meeting your audit requirements? I have a real-life example, a Sage customer. Before going paperless, her company got audited, and they were not able to produce all the document requested. The company was fined $100,000 because they were not able to produce all the required documents. That's more than pay for the system itself. So then, of course, from that fine, they went out seeking for a document management system. They use DocLink today, and from then, their audits have reduced dramatically, and of course, they are no longer being fined in any way. They are complying with their audits. Okay. So with our customer, what you can do is you can provide a login for your auditors, giving them security permission to documents that they are requesting to. Okay. Or if they're off-site, you can go in and do the searching for them. So Lori, your company been audited. I need for you to produce with me all these AP documents for all of your companies, and it has to be within a certain date range. Okay. No problem. In literally seconds, the system will bring up the search result with the listing of all the documents meeting that search criteria. We don't care how large your database is. It could be the whole congressional library. As long as you meet a minimum specs requirement, we can find your documents in literally seconds. I point this out because I have been doing this for over 15 years. I have seen systems that you can conduct the search before you go to lunch. When you come back from lunch, it's still searching. Kind of defeats the purpose. Okay. So something that you definitely want to watch out for. So here's the search result of 131 documents. Well, I can email it out if I want. Obviously, you don't want to for this number of documents. Okay, I can download it to CD or DVD. But when I download, I can even include the DocLink search engine with that. So the auditor who do not have access to the DocLink software application, they can actually go in and search, find for me the AP check anytime Altec pay a company called Delform, and the system will bring up those checks with the company name of Delform. I actually have customers using this feature in their legal department. When they go to court for a case, they go in, they search for document, they download it, and so the attorney at court are doing electronic searching while their opponents are dealing with papers. I bet you that many on the phone today are still doing the good old Excel spreadsheet for your expense report. Okay? We can help you with expense reporting. What we do is we create a template of your expense report. So when your staff travel through the mobile app module, they can capture documents. They can take pictures of their receipts. When they take pictures of the receipt, they tell it what it's about, who it's for, and then it gets downloaded into the database. This helped me dramatically. I personally, before we have this, when I travel a lot, and of course I lose my receipt all the time. And of course, I don't get reimbursed if I lose my receipt. Well, I don't have that problem anymore. Now, I just take the picture of the receipt right as I receive it, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So now those receipts get downloaded into DocLink, and now when you're ready to do your expense report at the end of the week or the month, you just log in. The system will create an expense report number, autofill your name based on your login. Okay, we are connected to Sage to your expense code. So you can, like I said, the expense code can be available on a drop-down list. You can even type in your mileage, and the system will auto-calculate your mileage. Okay, and with a simple click, the system will create your expense report with your itemized charges, with your receipt, and then now workflow can notify the approvers for approval. And yes, you can then do your GL coding, and then we can push that data over to Sage so AP staff don't have to do the same data entry. What about your HR department? Okay, we can help with securing your HR files. We can help you comply with HIPAA requirements. I'll bet you have those HR files in a file cabinet. How easy it is for an employee to go in, unlock that file cabinet, okay, and have access to everything. So yes, we have the security for you to comply with HIPAA. We can help you streamline your onboarding process with all those forms that are being generated in-house. We can do it the paperless way. We can help you tracking a certification for your employee, tracking when they retire, who's active, who's inactive, and so on. Okay. We can help you comply with the onboarding process, because when you onboard new staff, there's a lot of action that has to be taken. Okay. Did you pass out that employee handbook? Did you go through it with them? Do they have everything? Okay. Of course, for the IT side of the house, security, disaster preparedness. Okay, with minimal support of the system, we can meet those requirements. We also have customers using our system for contract management. As I mentioned, our system, we can store files in any format. So imagine, let's say I just draft up a contract. It's in Word format. I can store that draft contract into the system. This contract now needs to be worked on by Lori. Workflow then will notify Lori that she has a contract to work on. Okay. Lori then can log into the system, check it out, work on it, and check it back in. Because we have version control, check in, check out capability for document collaborations. Okay. That is included. So now you can start storing your live draft working documents, able to route it around, and action to take upon. We can restrict multiple people from working on the same documents at the same time. We can keep all the versions of your documents. So now when you want to email that contract, the final contract out to your customer, the system can email it out and convert it into a TIFF or PDF format. Contract management is another use. So we have many people on the line right now from various industries. I said we have many customers in the manufacturing industry. Here are some of the sample documents that that you have to deal with every day, from purchase order to your delivery receipt, travelers, quality assurance documents, and so on. Okay, all the way from beginning of the product all the way till the product is at the final finished stage. Distribution channels. Okay, having visibility to those documents as you're delivering all those goods and services, able to have access in the field, on the web. So yes, on the web, you can search for documents, you can have access to your workflow inbox, and able to review and approve often those documents. The field service folks, able to comply, comply with certain requirements that you have. Your service people can be out in the field, accessing the orders, their work orders that they need to work on while they're at the client site. And once they're done, they just click on done, and workflow now will notify AR staff for invoicing. Okay. And then of course we also have online electronic forms. So bottom line is, just for you to know, is that we have all the tools necessary to help you meet company-wide requirements. The system is an enterprise document management system. You can start it in AP, we can start it in AR, and you can expand it to other business units within your organization. One-time investment, you own it for life, and you can use it to store all of your information, not just the accounting, financial side of the house. Okay, so back about 6 years ago, President Obama had the initiative to go electronics. There were a lot of tax incentives for companies. So back then, like I said, our system was mostly for accounting use. But then we decided that we expand our system for enterprise-wide requirements. So now, we have all those features and capability to meet your company-wide requirements. So the question is, will you take the initiative? Do you have an enterprise initiative to go paperless? We can help you with that. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Lori.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. We want to just mention a couple of items. There is a promotion in place for anyone attending this webinar. You will receive a 10% discount on the purchase of DocLink through the end of September 2016. There are additional promotions on our website. The link is provided for you, socius1.com/sage-promotions. And I also wanted to mention that we will be having a client event for customers this September 22nd at Progressive Field. We will have an afternoon of learning followed by the Indians and the Kansas City Royals game at 7 p.m. We would love for you all to join us, and we have more information on our website. You can also contact Diane Graziano and myself if you have any questions at all. And there's our contact information on your screen. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We'll take a look at the questions that have come in.